Hey everybody, it's your man James, Basic One Treasure, back again with some more video action for you. This is another one of these clipped video snippets for you where I've taken something out of an old live stream and sort of patched it together. So instead of having to sit there and watch a 3 hour live stream, you can all get all about 20 or 30 minutes. And in this one, I kind of talk about how the comic pros have fallen for the myth of the modern audience and how they threw over their old one with their antics and behavior, and how the new one that they have gotten is not the one that they really are very happy with. So it's just kind of a very interesting thing. Again, considering all the stuff you see going on of late, the last couple of months, this was kind of the beginnings of that. I think when I did this bit in a live stream a few years ago, and so I thought you would enjoy checking that out. So please do, and as always, remember to throw down a like if you like what you hear here. And if you have any comments about what I say, drop them down below because I always want to hear what you got to say. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed so you don't miss any of the content that I'm pumping out from around here like crazy. And also, if you have subscribed, please share out some links so others can come in and join us, and they can maybe get some knowledge themselves. But I hope you get something out of this. I hope it's thought-provoking and maybe give you some insights. That's certainly what I strive for with them. And I will be back soon with some more stuff. And so until then, take care.
We're here with Eric Larson on the piracy debate. There is no debate. It's criminal behavior. People are struggling to make a living, and you're taking what they are creating without giving them compensation. There is no justification. Now, on the macro of this, he's right. There is no excuse for thievery. There is no excuse for piracy. It's theft. You're stealing stuff that does not belong to you. How many of us, back in the olden days, I can tell you, having worked comic shops, I had to sometimes tell kids who were sitting there reading the books, hey, yo, stop reading those books, because you're stealing the value of the comic. The whole value of the comic is you want to know what happens underneath that cover. And so if you sit there and read it without buying it, well, now you've gained all the information, and then you don't have to spend the money to get that information. And so we all know what that's like. We've all been there. So yes, there is no justification for it. But again, as I'm going to show you here, this is what they have courted for the last several years. This is the audience they have been going after. The audience that is doing this, that's who they wanted for some odd reason. I don't know why. I wouldn't have wanted them, but they did. And we're going to get into that now. Here's somebody here. This Dignity Dude says, you creators spend decades pushing Marxist propaganda in your books to turn young readers into socialists. But now you're angry that the anti-capitalist readers which your books helped create aren't giving you money for your work? Is that right? Yeah, well, that's kind of right in a way. Yes, it is. It's maybe not necessarily in the books all the time, but it's certainly in their rhetoric. How many of these people have been down on capitalism, have attacked anybody who supports, American values and American capitalism? How many of them? A lot of them have attacked people for that stuff. So, but of course, again, Larson has to deflect. No, it's not remotely right. It's nonsense. I don't know a single creator who pushes Marxist propaganda or who identifies as a socialist. What an utterly insane thing to suggest. Except, well, it would be insane if there weren't ones who were doing it. Like, oh, I don't know, good old Mags Visaggio. Good old Mags. The she-man herself. Yesterday's stupid bullshit about Mal's shoplifting comic. I see people saying, but the cashier might get fired. And I'm thinking, when did we start blaming poor people for the actions of capitalism? Well, gee, that sounds kind of socialist, don't you think? That's what socialists think about capitalism. It blames poor people for their actions that is not their fault. It's all the fault of capitalism. That's a socialist idea. And you might say, well, that would maybe she didn't mean it that way, or I took it out of context. No, they of course double down. If Jack fires Jill because Joe shoplifted during Jill's shift, that's Jack's fault, not Joe's. Joe didn't fire her. And here I thought be gay, do crimes was the anti-capitalist message we were all behind. People are out there condemning Mallory's for depicting. People are out there condemning Mallory for depicting an act of shoplifting that might theoretically, in the real world, have led to someone's termination, as if she herself was doing the firing, pitting the poor against the poor. That's what capitalism wants. I'm sorry, watching people turn on Mal for doing a comic about something poor young queers do all the time is absurd. Lots to unpack in that one. First of all, once again, doubles down on the anti-capitalist stuff, and then throws in be gay, do crimes, something poor young queers do all the time. So what are you saying? You're saying the LGBTQ plus community is a bunch of thieves? I mean, is that what you're saying? Because that's what it sounds like. Oh, well, they're poor, and so it's okay. Oh, it's okay to steal when you're poor? It's okay to steal if you're gay and poor? Is that what is that what? But again, just like with Larson, no personal responsibility whatsoever in any of this. It's all on somebody else. It's someone else's. It's capitalism's fault. It's the business owner's fault. You see, if Jill gets fired because Jack steals, that's not Jack's fault. I mean, if Joe steals and Jill gets fired because she was the one in charge at the time and failed to prevent that, and Jack fires her, well, that's Jack who's the problem, not Joe. You see, no personal responsibility whatsoever. So, you know, there you go, Eric. If you're watching this, Eric, there you go. Here's just one example of someone who does espouse anti-capitalist socialist views right here. And this isn't hard. This isn't like some nobody who's hardly ever worked in the industry. This is a person who's worked at virtually every major publisher: Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, Valiant, I think IDW. I mean, everywhere. Every major publisher has had Mag's books on the shelf, where they end up staying and dying, of course, but that's a whole other matter. But so this is not some small-time, you know, indie guy who's doing some book he's selling out of the trunk of his car. This is someone who has had lots and lots of mainstream publication and press. So that's what they're espousing. They're espousing the very thing he says, oh, nobody does that. Well, I guess here's nobody. I guess you're calling Mags a nobody then, right, Eric? Better watch your butt, buddy, because, you know, the LGBTQ plus community doesn't take kind to you insulting trans folk that way. They'll come for you. They'll come for you, man. They'll come for your bald ass. Trust me. But, of course, it still doesn't end, so we'll continue on with Eric. Here's Mike McKnight, who says, perhaps they should quit alienating lifelong fans and quit substituting badly written propaganda for competently written, enjoyable stories. Well, gee, that sounds a tad familiar, doesn't it? Isn't that like what, I don't know, every single longtime comic fan has been saying for the last 6 years? And again, Eric, fake stupidity. I've been writing and drawing the same comic book the same way for the last 29 years. The only difference is that 29 years ago, when Savage Dragon punched a Nazi, nobody thought it was a subtle dig at them. So now it's their fault. It's the audience. So if he does stuff that shows punching a Nazi and you see yourself being reflected in that somehow, that's on you, not him. Because it's not him taking a dig. It's just you reading way too much in because, well, I guess you must be a Nazi. And again, as Eric has said in the past, he's never called anybody a Nazi. I've never called anyone a Nazi. Well, you're kind of doing it right here, buddy. But again, once again, it's on the audience. It's not on the people creating it. It's on the people viewing it. And again, it's something that has been said by others. Our buddy Patrick Zurcher. Adversely, you could try telling the difference between a tweet about politics and one about comics. If politics are the sole means on which you judge people, you're too enmeshed in politics. The funny thing is, no one objects to a political opinion as long as it is the same as theirs. So again, here it is putting on you. If you see too many, if you think things are too political, it's because you're the one who's too political. It's not because we're doing anything. We're not putting these politics in. We're not calling you Nazis. We're not making those references to you. We're not putting that upon you. We don't know where you're getting these crazy ideas that when we write Nazis or Nazi-esque characters, we're somehow aiming it at you. That's all in your head. That's nothing to do with us. We've never done anything that would suggest we do those types of things. Nothing at all. Absolutely nothing. Oh, except for, well, this, of course. You know, many in comics gave the same personalities that would have been among the first to join the Nazi Party. They think stupidly, in extremes, they worship a leader, and desire enemies to rage at. Hail Caesar is not far removed from Heil Hitler. So here a guy saying, if you see politics in our stuff, it's because you're too enmeshed in politics, if that's how you're viewing it. Meanwhile, here he is insulting a part of the audience, calling them literal Nazis. Yo, you would have been the first to join the Nazi party back in 1920s Germany. Jesus H. Christ. But I'm sure that's just one-off. That's not a good thing that happens. Oh, wait, here's colorist Moose Bauman. Nazi ass clown, you seem nice. Go suck a dick. Oh, and look at this. It's a woman. That profile pic is of a woman. Did he just tell a woman to go suck one? Oh my God, what a misogynist bastard. He's not only calling people Nazis, he's also a misogynist by telling a woman to go suck one. Look at this. Oh my God. But yet, it's not, they never attack the fans. There is no reason for them to think that they're calling them Nazis. Where do we get that idea from? Oh, here's Mags again. The world is terrible, and everything sucks, and comic books and video games are fertile grounds for white nationalists to recruit aggrieved young men. But anyway, how are you? So yes, comic books are recruiting young men to be white supremacists, to be Nazis. Oh my goodness, imagine that. Gee, what comics would those be? Aren't you the ones writing those comics? So are you writing the comics that are turning them into white nationalists? How does that work? You see, but again, no responsibility on their own. Here's everyone's favorite cum dump, Heather Antos. People didn't ask to be born Jewish. People chose to be Republican. They chose to be a Nazi. She should be ashamed. This, of course, referencing Gina Carano's retweeting of an image where they had talked about how the Nazis didn't, like, when they came into power, didn't just like start grabbing Jews off the street and throwing them into murder camps. No, they didn't do that. They first turned the people against them. They turned neighbor against neighbor. They taught them to hate their neighbor. And then once that had set in, once they had pushed them far enough that they felt that way, when the Nazis came along to start rounding them up, well, the people didn't complain too much because, well, these people are no good anyway. It's when you make yourself, when the state teaches one group to hate another group, when it teaches one neighbor to hate the other neighbor, it always leads to a bad place. And whether it's for reasons of race, whether it's for reasons of gender, whether it's for reasons of sexuality, or whether it's for reasons of political viewpoints, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. That hatred is the same, and it always ends up in the same place. That was Gina Carano's point. Of course, Heather here only exemplifies that point. People chose to be Republicans. They chose to be a Nazi. So there you are, making the comparison that if you're a Republican, an American Republican, you're a Nazi. There's no difference between the two. They're both the same thing. Gee, where are we getting the idea that the readership thinks that when you drew Nazis in the comics, you're taking shots at them? Where is that possibly coming from? Here's another dickhead loser, which was one of the ones we got rid of in the bloodletting. Andy Corey, the man who destroyed Vertigo imprint at DC. What people actually mean when they say they want non-political comics, like when they were kids, is that they're devastated to have woken up one day as an adult, read a comic book, and realized they've grown up to become the kind of person their childhood hero punches in the face. So again, once again, a veiled reference to Nazi, because we all remember a few years ago what the big line was, punch a Nazi. Well, who's a Nazi? Well, according to Heather Antos, it's a Republican. So there you go. That's all you got to do. Are you a Republican? Oh, well, you're a Nazi, so I can punch you. And this is, here you go, more of the same. More of the same. Just attack after attack after attack. I don't know where the fan base can get these ideas from. And even Eric himself. You know, someone replies to him, okay, well, that's what people are talking about when they complain about politics and comics. Nobody is complaining that Cap punched SS troops. They're complaining that some creators seem to think they need to bend over backwards to annoy and denigrate any conservative readers. Yes, that is exactly right. You're attacking part of your readership because of what you perceive their politics to be. That is what you're doing. That is why they don't like that. That is why when they do draw, Savage Dragon punching a Nazi, they think it's a veiled shot at them. That's where they get that idea from, because of this very thing. But does Eric address that? No, he sidesteps, as he always does. People bitch about all kinds of things being political. If Captain America punches a Nazi today, it's viewed as a veiled criticism of President Trump because Nazis support Trump, and he called them some very fine people. So once again, there it is. He's calling people Nazis. If you support Trump, you're a Nazi. That's all it is. You're a Nazi because Trump's a Nazi, because he said they're fine people, except, as we all know, that was completely debunked. That's not what Trump said. When you watch the full clip, you see what he says. He says the white nationalists and neo-Nazis should be condemned totally. That's his exact words. How much more can you say to say that you're not for those people when you say to condemn them totally? But of course, facts don't matter to someone like Eric Larson, especially facts that contradict the narratives he wants to believe, such as all Trump supporters are Nazis. But then, see, this is why when they say, when you draw your Nazis in your book, gee, why do you think it's a veiled shot at you? Well, maybe this is why, because you're busy calling us those things. When you're calling people that, when you're using that term to silence and shame people. Maybe that's why. Just one of the reasons you've driven away so many readers that now piracy seems to be a problem. But we continue on, this time with Esper100, who says, why are you in denial about this? I stopped buying comic books because of the shitty behavior from comic pros, and they don't want me to buy their books. I have zero interest in reading them for free. Why won't you believe the customers? Again, very valid questions. Very valid questions. Again, and once again, Larson says, because you speak for you. You don't speak for all readers. If you did speak for all readers, comic books couldn't exist because nobody would be buying them. Since comic books do exist, you can't be speaking for all readers. The projection in this, my God, there you could line up a mile of movies projectors themselves to project, and you have less projection than you are from Derek Larson right here. This guy to say that you don't speak for everybody. This guy who supports people and movements who do things like say, change the name of the football team the Redskins because it offends Native Americans. Meanwhile, when you ask Native Americans, yeah, are you offended by the name of the team, the Redskins? They're like, what? No, I don't care about that. My God, I got problems in my own community. We got drugs and alcohol problems and domestic violence and criminal gangs. And we got all kinds of problems in our community to worry about. We ain't worried about a damn football's team name. Jesus. So here he is. He would take offense on behalf of others who aren't really offended and speak for them, even though that's not what they say. But yet here this guy can't speak for all readers because they're not all readers. And again, to say that, you know, it's because if comic books wouldn't exist because no one would be buying them, well, that's exactly what he's crying about now. You're not buying the stuff. You're pirating it. You're stealing it. There's no excuse for that. There's no excuses and no justifications. So they aren't buying it, Eric. That's your whole point in all of this. I mean, talk about shooting yourself in the foot. Jesus. But again, his treatment of the consumer here is nothing new. Here's the cum dumper self. Comic professionals aren't customer service representatives. Well, yes and no. Yeah, they are not them because they do a really lousy job if they are. But yes, they are supposed to be, especially today. I'm sorry, in the modern world of the 21st century, you are customer service if you work in comics. If you are the writer, you're the artist, you are now, and you're putting, you know, your stuff out on social media, and you put in your bio that you work on these books. Yes, you are now a representative of the company. You are a representative of the product. You are a representative of customer service. That is exactly what you are. All of you, from the editor to the assistant editor to the writer, the artist, all the letterer, all the way down the line. Every single one of you are customer service representatives. When you are out there on social media, touting your works in your bio, if not actually making posts about them, and then when you go and attack the readers the way we just saw, yeah, you are definitely failing in your duties. But here we go. Hey gang, friendly reminder of the basic rule of life: don't be a douchebag. Oh, you mean like by equating Republicans with Nazis? You mean that kind of douchebaggery? Is that what you mean, Heather? Is that what we're talking about? Is that or is that douchebaggery okay? That's okay because it's your douchebaggery? Oh, I see. I see. So when someone calls you a cum dump, well, that's being a douchebag. But when you call them a Nazi, well, that's okay. That's perfectly justified. Get out of here. The hypocrisy of these people, the utter gall. And we got shit-stain Ron Mars. Numerous. Actually, you need to listen to your customers' tweets in my mentions this morning. Gee, I wonder why that would be. Could it be because you don't listen to them? Could it be because you attack them on the regular? Could it be because you call them Nazis and worse? Could it be because you don't actually talk about your work as much as you talk about your politics, about how much you hate who the president is, about how much you hate Republicans or whoever or whatever, or how this cause du jour is what everyone should support, even if they don't believe in it, because otherwise you're a racist. I mean, these are the type of things these people, I mean, just look, if you look at their timelines on their social media, it's politics, 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 politics. And maybe if you're lucky, they'll throw in a few bones about comics once in a while. Really, the only place you're going to see them talk about comics very much is in their bio most of the time. That's it. They're too busy attacking readers. If you put half as much energy into creating worthwhile stories that are not political propaganda meant to denigrate a section of the audience, then maybe you would have to worry about piracy. Or does that make too much sense? There's a deep misunderstanding of who the client is here. And my business card says writer, not customer service. Well, it may not say it on your card, but yes, that's part of what your job is now. Unless you want to give up all social media. Now, if you want to just get off social media and just be a hermit and never speak to anybody there, and only time they ever see you is at a comic convention, maybe, if they ever come back, okay, well, then you can say you're not customer service. But if you're going to be on social media and you're going to have your name, your books in your bio, and you're going to eventually, even occasionally, talk about your work on your timeline, then guess what? You are now a customer service representative of that company, of that brand, of that character, of all of that product. That's exactly what you are. That is exactly what you are. And if you don't want to accept that burden, then get off social media. That's the answer. But these people won't do that because on top of everything else, these arrogant assholes are egotists. Yes, that's wrong. Writers are hired by publishers. Publishers sell to retailers, and retailers sell to fans. So my client is the publisher, not the fan. Except, of course, whose money is in that check that your publisher signs? Is it his money? No, it's not his money. He got that money from the distributor. Who they get that money from? Well, they got it from the retailer. Well, who they get that money from? Well, they got that from the fans. So when you trace it all back, the money in that paycheck that your publisher is signing is the fans' money. So who's really paying you? I know thinking isn't your strong suit there, comic creators. I know you don't like numbers and math. I know that's hard. But just think for a minute. This is Economics 101. So yes, the client is the fan. Because without the fans, you all have nothing. Because without the fans, the shops don't need the books because nobody's coming in to buy them. And if the shops don't need the books, then the distributor doesn't have people to sell to. And if the distributor doesn't have anybody to sell to, we're not going to ask the publisher to create the product. And if the publisher doesn't have any product to give to the distributors, well, then they don't need you, do they? This is like dominoes, folks. You knock one down and they all start tumbling. And this mentality is what has been hurting comics. This is the mentality you don't see from manga folk. If you've seen interviews, and I've seen a couple interviews recently with manga creators, they are very thankful for their fans. They love their fans. They love the fans who love the work. And they talk so much about the work, not about like their politics and like, well, I think the character should think this way because I think this way. No, that's not what they talk about. The actual work. Like this character being something to me because I have always thought that, these types of themes were important and this is how I approach my art and this is how I approach the story. They actually go into detail of the actual work because it matters to them. Unlike people like Ron Mars. But, Eric continues on his thread. You suffer from the erroneous belief that since you feel some way that everyone else must also feel that way, and that's clearly untrue. Despite your buying habits, the comic book industry continues to exist and thrive. Exist and thrive so much that you're now whining about piracy, making it impossible for you to make a living. And again, this all boils down to pure economics. If you had, say, 10,000 people pirating the book, but you had 200,000 readers buying it, yeah, those pirates suck. They're no good. They're horrible. They're thieves. There's no justification, as he said. But they are offset by the 200,000 that are buying your books. Why? Because they've made them insignificant now. Yeah, they may be stealing it, and yeah, that's a little bit of money lost because they're stealing it. But compared to what you're getting from the main audience, yeah, you've got more than enough to cover whatever loss those few pirates will make on you. Now, let's spin it around. Now instead of having 200,000 readers buying your book, you have 20,000 readers buying your book and 10,000 pirates. All of a sudden now those pirates are a problem. Why? Well, because they went from being 5% of the number to 33% of the number. You see, now all of a sudden they're much more significant, because even though their number hasn't changed the same amount from in both my examples, their percentage has changed. They are now a major part of your audience, a third. And that's those numbers are so bad that even if they all became buying customers and it went to 30,000, you'd still probably be saying, wow, that's still really low. We need to get at least 50,000 just to break even. Yeah. So you're not even getting breaking even numbers, even if all the pirates suddenly became buyers. This is where we're at. This is the situation we're in. And again, that's the erroneous belief here. This is the audience that they targeted with all their politics and their identity politics, their wokeness, their critical race theory, their intersectionality and feminism. This is who they targeted, was the people who are stealing the stuff now. That is who they are. That's who they wanted. That's who they said they were making it for. We're doing it for these marginalized people who don't have representation. And now they're stealing from you. Congratulations. And we come back to Eric again. Shaming people doesn't change hearts. And yeah, it does suck to put all that effort into your work only to have people take it. But there are still good people in the world who do support us, and they should be our primary concern. My God, the irony, the utter irony. Oh my God. Shaming people doesn't change hearts. You mean like when you compare them to Nazis because of who they vote for? Like when you tell them they're bigots because they won't put a BLM hashtag in their bio, because they don't believe that you should judge people based on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character, because they don't believe that women in the West are oppressed, because they don't believe that minorities in the West are oppressed, because they think that meritocracy is not white supremacy. Shaming people for those kinds of things, shaming them because they say you shouldn't let the state make you turn on your neighbor for political reasons, because they say these types of things, where you compare being a part of one political party is the same as being a Nazi. Those kinds of shaming tactics, Eric, is this what we're talking about? Gee, I wonder why so little has changed. And making the people who support you the primary concern, if you did that, you wouldn't be where you are right now. You didn't want those people. You and the Kelly Sue DeCuntnicks and all the rest, the Ron Marses and the Gail Simones and the Dan Slotts and the Mark Wades and the Tom Brevorts, you all basically told people, we don't want you. You don't matter. You're unimportant. We don't want your money, bigots. That was said to us directly. Is that showing primary concern? I don't think it is. Again, but this only comes out now because you're in dire straits. That's what it took. It took for them to have to basically be leaning over the edge into the precipice of seeing the burning pit of hell and going, oh, gee, maybe I should be a better person. Yeah, you think? Gee, we've only been telling you that for years. Maybe you should have listened. I mean, again, just the utter irony of him, of all people, saying this. Which, that's why manga is now dominating. And, of course, then you get things like this with Jerry Conway. American comic book artists are taken deservedly to task regularly for outrageous sexist treatment of women. But rarely do I see any commentary on the rampant sexism and misogyny of manga, and manga is incredibly popular with younger readers. Well, gee, Jerry, I wonder why the Japanese don't want assholes like you working on their properties. I wonder why that is. Gee, but I love Az's response here. Creator of Power Girl cries about tits. Please, I can't stop laughing. And neither can I. Neither can I, my friend. This is exactly, the hypocrisy of these people, the utter gall of these people. They blast you as the misogynist, you as the sexist, you as the racist, you as the Nazi, and yet they themselves are guilty of the very things they want you to be shamed for. Things that Eric said, well, you shouldn't shame people because it doesn't change their hearts. I guess Jerry didn't get that message, Eric. He's not just shaming American comic fans, he's shaming international fans. I mean, couldn't this qualify as hashtag Asian hate? Calling them sexist and misogynist because of the stories they tell in their comic books? Like I said, it's always a double standard, always a different standard for them than it is for you. And this is what they end up with as a result. This is what all that mentality that I've just shown you in these last several tweets gets you. This is your audience, Western comic folks. Right here. This is your audience. That's why your audience is nothing but pirates now. Because all the paying customers are gone. They don't want you anymore. You've told them, we don't want your money, bigots. We don't want your money, Nazis. We don't give a fuck about you. We don't want fans who don't understand what we're doing, who don't get it. We don't want you. You're just bigots and we don't want you. Well, now you don't have us. And here's what you do have. So choke on it. You've earned it.